It's time for the Las Vegas Sportsline. Brought to you by Caesars Entertainment, where every guest is treated like Caesar and every visit is unforgettable.
It is a kind of a bleak Wednesday here in Las Vegas, but it's beautiful right here on the Las Vegas Sportsline, our Wednesday edition, brought to you by Caesars Entertainment. Teddy Covers will be in studio with me. I'm Dave Koken. Jared Justice is at the controls, producing our show, and we've got the Director of Trading from Caesars Entertainment, Jeff Davis. You can follow him on Twitter at @the_junkyard, joining us for the first 30 or so today. Hi, Jeff. How are you, man?
Dave, what's going on? How are you?
I'm excited. I've got a Stanley Cup final where I think the team I root for normally is a clear favorite to win it all, and that would be the Boston Bruins. They're hosting the St. Louis Blues, who are a great story in the first two games. They'll have home ice advantage in this series. And I'm curious where the betting action is going to be in this, because the Blues have been such a good story. How did that impact setting the number here? And are you going to generate enough action on the Blues to offset the action on what to me is clearly the stronger team in Boston?
You know, Dave, I think the Blues are more than a good story. I think they're a good hockey team, and they play the style of game that wins in the playoffs. They're big, they're physical, they don't give you much space out there, and I think outside of the injuries to San Jose in Game 6, a lot of that is what happened to San Jose. They couldn't get bodies in front of Binnington, and St. Louis won that series pretty comfortably. After watching the first few games, I didn't think that was going to be the case, but you know, games 4, 5, and 6, far different story than games 1, 2, and 3. As far as this series goes, the Bruins, we opened minus $1.35 when the Bruins beat Carolina. We hung both possible prices. And we took a bet, and we were up to minus 50. And I'm looking at the prices around town, minus 55, minus 60. I think it's a little high, and especially given all of the Blues Stanley Cup liability that there is around town, ourselves included. It came a little bit higher than I expected, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it come back down, maybe minus 45, maybe minus 50 by the time Monday rolls around.
So here's my take on it. I think from a true line standpoint on power ratings and stuff like that, yeah, I mean, I understand that there might be some perceived value in the Blues. The problem for me is I don't like that from a matchup standpoint for St. Louis, because they do a lot of the same things Boston does. And, you know, it really worked against San Jose, which was not a physical hockey team. You could make the case it worked in the series prior to that, the Winnipeg series. But Boston is a very physical team. And I think they're just better at that aspect of the game than the Blues. So I don't know how the Blues are going to beat them unless Binnington just goes insane and stops everything in goal.
Yeah, you're right about them being so similar, and the difference seems to lie in the Bruins' top line. And the Bruins' special teams have been incredible in the playoffs, and that might end up making the difference. I would expect this series to go a long way, and I would expect this series to be a real grinder. First team to 2 might win each of these games. Yeah. I mentioned it on Twitter last night when I saw the total open 5.5 under a quarter, and it just needed to be a lot lower than that. As if you look in the market now, there are some minus 45s out there in the under, and we're the only place that's hanging a 5.
And when we think about the real long shots to cash winning bets, the Leicester Cities of the world, the 99 Rams of the world, what would the Blues be on that pantheon? You know, I mean, this is a team that was what? How high did you have them? Plus 200, plus 250?
Yeah, we took some money at 250 to 1 early January. Worst team in the NHL on January 3rd. And, you know, those teams generally don't make the playoffs. They go the other way. And that's right when they won 12 out of 13. This would be, I mean, I wouldn't put it on the Leicester City level because this roster is a good roster and was kind of hyped before the season starts, but it's up there with the Danny Willits winning the Masters of the world.
Ah, that's a good one. I like
Buster
that
Douglas?
Buster Douglas was not.
That's out of left field, Buster Douglas.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody gave him a chance to win.
To my knowledge, I talked with Jimmy about this years ago. They didn't take any bets on Douglas. Nobody bet it.
So,
Nobody. I'm talking nobody.
This huge long shot wins and nobody cashes in.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays you'll get people to take any kind of a long shot out there. There were people who bet on Tony. A lot of them actually bet on Tony Romo to win a golf tournament. But back in those days, there were underdogs like that, Jeff, that literally nobody would bet on.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. That wouldn't be the case today.
No.
If Tyson fought Douglas, we'd need Tyson for all kinds of money, and the perfect example of that is the Mayweather-McGregor.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Look at how much money there was on McGregor at the most ludicrously square price on earth.
Yeah, it's actually probably the best bet I've made in the last 3 or 4 years was Mayweather. I mean, that was like stealing money.
So I was in a room with a bunch of people that bet a bunch of money on Mayweather, and the first 2 rounds, that was a quiet room. You remember McGregor?
It wasn't quiet for long.
Yeah.
They saw McGregor sucking air by the end of the second round. It's like, okay, this is going to be easy enough. All right, well, what's not easy is all of a sudden we've got ourselves a real dynamite series in the Eastern Conference of the NBA. I think after Game 2, a lot of people thought, well, maybe Toronto will get one on their home court, but the Bucks are in control here. Now, it's a best of 3. This is going to be pretty good stuff.
Yeah, the action on the series has been really good. Game 4 result was incredible for the house. We took about 75% of the money on Milwaukee. We opened 7-2-18 for Game 5. We took some sharp money on the dog and sharp money on the under this morning, so now at 6.5 and 217. And the series price roughly back to where it started, Bucks minus 270, Raptors plus 230.
Yeah, so even at 2-2, we haven't seen an adjustment in the series price such that now Toronto is being looked at like this momentum carries forward.
Yeah, and I actually thought, now that it's a shorter series and, the home team winning all 4 games, I thought it would come a little bit higher than it did. But no, it's right back to where it started, no adjustment.
That's Jeff Davis, Director of Trading at Caesars Entertainment. All their locations around town, great spots to check out the games. We'll tell you about the app in a little bit. You can follow Jeff on Twitter at @the_junkyard. Teddy Covers is here. I'm Dave Koken. Let's talk about what's in store as far as the finals would be concerned. With Golden State's in. Now, is there going to be a difference in the betting patterns based on whether it's Milwaukee or Toronto?
I would assume. I feel like the public is going to want to bet Milwaukee. Giannis is such a likable guy. And there really hasn't been too much Raptor public money outside of Game 1. So I would assume if the Raptors get there, we'll be needing the Raptors. And I would assume if the Bucks get there, the money will be pretty even because, frankly, everyone likes to bet Golden State. But the Bucks will command some of that money. So, yes, there will be a difference in betting depending on which side qualifies out of the East.
Yeah, I mean, prior to last night's game, I saw a hypothetical line for the finals of Warriors minus 180 versus the Bucks versus Warriors minus 300 versus the Raptors. Would you think there'd be that kind of a split depending on who gets there?
I actually think it would be higher. We talked about it briefly. We figured Golden State about $1.80-ish if they were playing Milwaukee, and we think it's as high as $4 if they were going to play Toronto. I think the difference is far greater.
So I'll throw a square opinion at you here, which in the NBA I think I am quite square. My square opinion is that the money I might have considered on Milwaukee against Golden State, I'm less reluctant to bet now simply based on the fact that they were not able to get rid of Toronto, or at least put themselves in position to get rid of Toronto in 5 games. In other words, my square opinion is that Milwaukee isn't as good as they thought they were, because I still don't think that much of Toronto, and that means Golden State's not going to have much of a problem. Is that a strictly square opinion that you think will show up at the windows, or am I sharper than I think?
Coming to me for NBA opinions is not something I would advise anyone.
Same on my end.
What you say makes a lot of sense, and I haven't watched Game 3 or Game 4, but from what I've read and what has been talked about, it seems like the Bucks should have got out of there with a win, and what you say makes a lot of sense. As far as the public and the betting goes, if Milwaukee wins this series, there will be Milwaukee money every night during the finals.
All right, Teddy. So Jeff and I and myself have freely admitted we're NBA squares. You are not. You are a sharp NBA guy. Did what I say make sense to you? Because I kind of think it did. I think Milwaukee should have put this team away. Not won the series by now, but put themselves in a situation to wrap it up in Game 5. And my opinion of them actually went down a bit by them not being able to win one game in Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, the Bucks easily could have had Game 3 and let it get away. And Game 4, Toronto played their, one of the best games they've had all postseason. I mean, the Raptors were great.
But doesn't that make
last night and took my money.
It's making me think that, okay, you know what? It's not going to be as much of a challenge as I thought it might be for Golden State, and they're going to win again.
Well, I mean, it's a Bucks team that this is their second 2-game losing streak of the entire season. So they've been pretty good at responding to adversity prior to Game 4. And in fact, I'd been 23-1 coming off a loss going into last night.
I saw the numbers; they're tremendous.
Yeah, so I'm not going to let the one game that Game 3 they didn't play well offensively. Game 4 they didn't play well defensively. In my mind, it makes a big difference if they win in 6 or 7.
Okay,
if they can go back to Toronto and win in 6, I don't think you downgrade the Bucks at all. If, however, it takes 7 games for Milwaukee to win, or if Toronto wins the series, obviously. Maybe you look at the Bucks differently. Remember, this is rarefied air for a team that hasn't been there before.
Let's turn to something where I know Jeff's got a really strong opinion. He's one of the best around when it comes to the world of golf. And, boy, what a show we saw last week on Long Island with Brooks Koepka was just absolutely brilliant and is now the established number 1 player in the world. So what do we do from a bookmaking standpoint with the U.S. Open coming up and the fact that it doesn't mean he's going to win the tournament, but it would be a shock at this point if he's not in contention again. And you've got to price that. You've got to make a price based on what's going to be a lot of action on this guy.
Yeah, we do. And just to touch on last week, he was incredible Thursday, Friday. And it's so disheartening as a guy who's a golf fan, who's rarely, if ever, going to bet the top guy in the market. I wasn't even interested on Sunday. And then I'm sitting on the couch watching the Blues and Sharks, and that game was an absolute disaster. So I put the golf on, and the bogeys start coming, and DJ starts making birdies. And Johnson gets to 17, and I didn't watch a ton of this tournament over the weekend, but not to sound like a get-off-my-lawn kind of guy, but the crowd was obnoxious.
Oh, terrible.
It was, that's kind of reserved for the tournament in Scottsdale, and you kind of get away with it. But DJ hit a terrible shot on 17 that went way right, and I think the crowd had a say in it. They start yelling and screaming before he makes contact, and it's just no good for anyone.
No, it's not.
Rant over.
I completely agree with your rant, by the way. And here's the thing. In Scottsdale, as noisy as it is, we know that going in, but it's also everybody's having a great time kind of chaos. It's not mean-spirited at all. This was, and shame on the fans at the U.S. Open. I thought they did it. I thought they were a disgrace.
Let's not go any further with that. But as far as the U.S. Open goes, we opened Koepka 6-1, which is nuts given the quality of these fields. And we took money right away. And, we got a red number on him early. There's going to be a lot more handle, but the money's not going to stop. We opened DJ 8-1, who has a phenomenal history at Pebble Beach. He's won twice and has had 5 other top 5s. Led the U.S. Open after Saturday, the last time they played it there. And we took a bet we respect from a guy at 8-1 this morning. He's now 7. And they're taking up so much of the market, and that means there's good prices everywhere else in the market because we believe in having a fair future market. If you have an opinion in the U.S. Open and it's not Koepka or DJ, chances are you'll find the best number at our place. And in a random aside, the amount of Phil Mickelson money there has been so far in the U.S. Open is unbelievable. He has more tickets written than Koepka and DJ combined.
I'd like to see it because I'm a lefty fan, but I've got my doubts on that one. Let me know about projections in terms of price in volume, maybe. The 2 guys I keep mentioning as guys I'm going to play them in majors, and I think one of them is going to get there really soon, maybe both. Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele, and they both played well at the PGA.
They did. Cantlay's just a guy that keeps the head down and doesn't let the bogey get in the way. He's 30-1.